In previous videos, I've referred to the table saw as a poor choice or even a dangerous tool with which to cut rough milled boards. I've explained why, but this question comes up often enough that I think it may be useful to have a short, dedicated video explaining the potential dangers involved, which I can then refer these folks to when they ask me about it. Yes, this is a safety video. We make over 100 woodworking tutorials a year. Maybe a half dozen of them are directly focused on safety. So there's plenty of tutorials on our channel if you think you already know all you need to know about safety. But I think it's good to get an occasional refresher no matter how much experience we have. So I hope you'll stay with me for just a couple minutes. Now let's begin by saying I've cut rough boards on the table saw before and I still have all 10 fingers. I know many of you have gotten away with it as well. Not every rough sawn board is equally dangerous to cut at the table saw. There are different levels of roughness. A board that's a little woogity presents a far smaller risk than one with a great big twist in it. So keep things in perspective as we proceed. The problem with rough stock isn't the rough surface. It's that the board may have a bow, a twist, a crook, or a cup in it that is formed after it was first cut from the tree and during the drying process. This is what I mean by rough stock. Stock that has not been properly flattened and straightened with a jointer since it's been dry. Cutting such a board with a table saw can potentially cause a kickback that can strike and seriously injure you, or may even pull your hand into the blade before you can react. So let's start with a bowed board. This is perhaps the least dangerous of these scenarios, but there are some risks if the board does not lay flat on top of the saw as you cut. With the crown side down, the board may rock. Flipped over so the hollow side is down, the board must now wrap over the top of the saw, with the end falling at the beginning of the cut and then rising as it moves towards the blade. Such movement may not technically change how the blade reacts to the wood, but when you give up any measure of stability, you compromise your ability to fully control the cut, and that's just not a good thing. Now let's consider a more dangerous scenario. Imagine you're ripping a board and you decided to twist or rotate it in the middle of the cut. Do you see how the cutting path changes in relation to the blade? This puts pressure on the blade's side, and that's always bad because the added friction can cause binding and potentially shoot that board right back at you. If your hand is close to the blade when that happens, it may even be pulled in as the board does whatever it wants. Of course, no one would ever intentionally rotate a board during a cut. But if you're trying to cut a warped board that has a natural twist in it, it may rotate on its own as it rocks from one position to the next. You may think you can hold that stable as you go through the cut, but it's better to decide if you're using poor judgment before the cut than to say, man, that was stupid after the cut. Perhaps an even more common scenario concerns ripping a cupped board. If you put the crown side down, the board may rock during the cut, putting excessive pressure on either side of the blade. Obviously, the more stable orientation is with the crown up, so you have 2 points of contact on the saw top and the board cannot rock. But note what happens as the board is cut in two. It collapses downward, pinching one or even both sides of the blade. The bottom line is you must have a flat, stable board surface on top of the saw if you wish to make safe cuts. No bows, no twists, and no cups. Now a board with a crooked or curved edge presents another problem. Imagine you want to rip this board down the middle. You may choose to place the crowned edge against the fence, but with only 1 point of contact, you'll not be able to keep this board running straight. This is little better than a freehand cut, and any shifting to the right or to the left will put dangerous pressure against the side of the blade, potentially causing kickback. If you put the hollow edge against the fence, the board must be shifted to achieve 2 points of contact. And in order to maintain that stability, the board must be moved to wrap around the fence as it moves forward. Notice how the center line changes in relation to the blade during the cut. Such pressure against the blade's side can cause things to go bad in a hurry. So not only must you have a flat face on top of the saw, you must also have a straight edge to put against your fence if you wish to rip a board at the table saw. So this is why we have jointers. With a jointer, you can make one flat face to lay on top of the saw and one straight edge to run against the saw's fence. But what if you don't have a jointer? Well, a bandsaw makes an excellent ripping tool. I often use my bandsaw to rip rough boards that are too wide for my jointer. Even a smaller saw with a narrow blade can be used to follow a reasonably straight pencil line to create an edge that's suitable to run against a table saw fence, which can then be used to clean up what might be a rough bandsaw cut. A handheld jigsaw may also be used to do the same thing if you don't have a suitable bandsaw. So that takes care of a crooked edge. But what about the face? How do you make that flat without a jointer? If a wide board is only slightly cupped, ripping it in half may all but eliminate the problem, making it suitable for further processing at the table saw. The same is true for a slightly warped or twisted board, or even longer bowed boards. If your rough stock is wider or longer than your final workpieces will be, consider breaking it down into smaller pieces to reduce the danger when you do move to the table saw. There are also homemade jigs that may be used to create a straight edge safely at the table saw, and router jigs that may be used to flatten a rough face. You might even use a hand plane to at least knock off the high points on the board's surface so you can maintain stability as you cut it on top of your table saw. Finally, don't forget the value of your blade guard and its splitter. If a workpiece does apply pressure against the side of the blade, you'll be much safer with this in place. A splitter or riving knife will not prevent all potential issues that come with milling rough stock, but it will protect the back teeth of the blade, which are the most likely to dig in, lift the workpiece from the saw, and throw it back at you. I'm not saying you can just cut any rough boards you want if you have a splitter or riving knife in place, but it is your best line of defense should you decide to work with slightly imperfect stock. I hope this video has given you the information you need to decide what's best for your shop. See you next time. It's just a couple of cuts. Your ears will be fine, right? They will be if you have your IsoTunes Bluetooth earbuds in, because you'd already have your ANSI certified hearing protection on because you're listening to your favorite music and podcasts. And you're supporting a small family business at the same time. Please use the link below this video to learn more and to show them you support what we do as well. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.